Good morning, welcome to our daily psalm. Today we're reading through Psalm 100, Psalm 100. Well, yesterday the Venite, Psalm 95, and today another psalm which has been used in church services across the centuries, Psalm 100, the Jubilate, sung sometimes as William Keith's famous 16th century hymn. All people that on earth do dwell, sing to the Lord with cheerful voice, which unfortunately, because it's often played quite slowly, gives the wrong impression from the word go about how this psalm goes. We'll see that in just a moment. We've said it before about the psalms. If you want to know the heart of the psalm, go to the psalm's heart. Look at what the central verse says. It's often the key, often the pinnacle, actually, to which the psalm leads us. Psalm 100 has 5 verses, and verse 3, the central verse, says, "Know that the Lord, He is God." So Psalm 100 holds up its placard and proclaims mightily, there is only one God, and He is the Lord. In Hebrew, it's Yahweh, God's personal name. Well, let's read through this wonderful, though short, psalm. The first word of the psalm actually is a fanfare, announcing the arrival of the subject of the psalm. But this fanfare isn't in the form of a trumpet voluntary or of a choral anthem. No, this fanfare is a raucous, full-lunged roar, a liturgical whoop. So here's verse 1. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. So Psalm 100 claims the world for God. This summons is for every voice across the world to add its cheer to the shout of welcome. Goes on in verse 2. Serve the Lord with gladness and come before his presence with a song. There are only 2 uses of the verb to serve in the whole of the Psalms, and this is one of them, the other is in Psalm 2. This is why our acts of worship, of course, are called services. Worship is the primary response that we make to serve God, the first response that we owe him. In the New Testament, Romans 12 verse 1 extends the idea where nothing short of a life of sacrificial service is what counts as true worship. We're urged to worship God with our whole lives, home life, work life, play life, all dedicated to serving God, to worshipping God in every aspect of our life. And we're to come into God's presence with a song, so Psalm 100 tells us. The same word is in Isaiah 51 verse 11 and gives the sense of the song of singing your hearts out with joy at God's power to liberate. Our song is a freedom song. Well, Psalm 100 goes on in verse 3. Here's the central point. Know that the Lord, He is God. That verse 3 opening statement is blunt. It's uncompromising. To know in Hebrew, that verb means to be sure of something, absolutely certain of something. So be certain of this. Yahweh, He is God. End of. He is known as He reveals Himself as to be Yahweh, as He gives His personal name to people, as He introduces Himself, if you like. And the reality is that there is no other being to whom the title God can be ascribed. As one commentator notes, to praise is to reject alternative loyalties and false definitions of reality. Praise is relentlessly polemical. Well, this central verse, verse 3, goes on, after know that the Lord, He is God, it is He who made us, and we are His people, the flock He pastures. So the second part of verse 3 is equally forthright. In simple, all-embracing sentences, we're left in no doubt. God created us, we belong to him, and he cares for us. And all of those three sentences, it seems to me, are rich fodder for our worship, aren't they? Psalm 100 goes on in verse 4. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and bless his name. So verse 4 pictures worshippers assembling in the courtyards of the temple to offer God their thanks and praise. And we, of course, can go much further than that. In the New Testament, Hebrews 10, 19 and 20 tells us of the confidence given to us to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way opened for us through the curtain, that is his body. Great privilege indeed. We go right into the Holy of Holies, right into God's presence through Jesus. And then verse 5, the final verse of Psalm 100. For the Lord is good, his steadfast love is everlasting, and his faithfulness continues from generation to generation. It's a beautiful summary in verse 5 of who God is and why he should be worshipped. He is graciously good. He is enduringly loving. He is reliably faithful through all the generations. What a wonderful God to know, to belong to, and worship. And just as a final thought, Psalm 100 is peppered with 7 imperative verbs. We've read them already, but I'll repeat them for you. Shout, serve, come, know, enter, thank, praise. 7 verbs, 7 ways to worship, actually. And I just wonder whether that's 7 days of the week. We could take a verb for each day of the week and worship God that way. Let's take a moment to pray. O Christ, the Good Shepherd and door of the sheepfold, may we enter your gates with praise and go from your courts to serve you with our whole lives, body, mind and spirit, every moment for you, this day and all our days. Amen.